I was thrilled to receive an invitation from Northern Lights to be part of your conference, because it's the people of the North who understand far more than any other part of Canada that the effects of human activity are being felt very dramatically, especially in the area of climate change. And it is the North that is being disproportionately impacted by climate change for reasons that the polar areas are heating up much more strongly and rapidly than the temperate and the tropical areas. So you, in many ways, are the canaries in the coal mine. You are feeling, you can see the impact of climate change and have become very vocal in calling on the world to begin to address this important issue. I'm not going to go into the details of climate change, except to say I have never seen the scientific community so united and so outspoken in the sense of urgency to act on the issue of climate change. We know it's happening. We know that humans are a major contributor to climate change, and we know that if we don't begin to cap and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, the consequences are going to be catastrophic. Oh, there'll be opportunities in the short run. For example, the extension of farming areas and farming seasons will travel further north. There will be the exposure of more resources. The oil sector can't wait to get up into the Arctic area to begin testing for oil. And I think more and more pressure from southern populations to move north are going to increase in the coming years. But the reality is the ecological integrity of the planet is going to be drastically impacted by what is already happening today. You see, for over 40 years, leading scientists of the world have been telling us that humanity has changed in its relationship with the planet. We have become a powerful force, so powerful we are undermining the very life support systems of the planet. And it's happened very suddenly, so we haven't really taken it all into account to realize what's going on. We are now the most numerous mammal on the planet. There are more of us than any species of mouse, of rat, or rabbit. We are 7 billion strong. There's no large mammal that we know of anywhere near 1 billion in population, but we are at 7 billion. And that's happened very suddenly. I was born in 1936 when there were 2 billion people in the world. Can you imagine? The population in my lifetime has increased by 350%. Virtually all of the technology we take for granted today, from cars to radio to television to, all of the electronic stuff today, has been invented in the last 150 years. And then you look at our consumption patterns and a global economy that now uses the entire planet for raw materials, that uses the entire planet to dump its toxic debris. You can see why we now have to think as a single species to look at the collective impact of our species on the planet. Many of my scientific colleagues have begun to despair and are now saying that it's too late to avoid a catastrophic collapse within the biosphere. Sir Martin Rees, the Royal Astronomer of the United Kingdom, one of the leading scientists in the world, was asked last year by BBC, what are the chances human beings will survive in 100 years? And his answer shocked me. He said 50-50. Jim Lovelock, the man who invented the idea of Gaia, the world, the biology is a single organism, says that by 2100, 90% of all human beings will have disappeared. And he advises people, go further up mountains and migrate north if you want to try to survive. Clive Hamilton, a leading eco-philosopher in Australia, has written a book, Requiem for a Species. Guess what species the book is a requiem for? It's us. So the calls from scientists are becoming more and more urgent and desperate. But now we are not paying attention to what scientists are saying. And that's the question. Why aren't we listening to what scientists are saying? I think it's because of a very sudden change in our relationship with the Earth. I think it's very significant that the people of the North are interested in the environmental impacts because you have a large representation from the Aboriginal communities of the North. You see, for the vast majority of human existence, we were local tribal animals. We understood that we were deeply embedded in nature and utterly dependent on it. We didn't have to worry about people, whether there were people on the other side of an ocean, over a mountain, or across a desert. We were only concerned about our local tribal people. That's changed. We now have to think collectively of all human beings. Even in 1900, when there were 1.5 billion people in the world, there were only 14 cities with more than 1 million people. Largest was London with 6.5 million. Tokyo was the 7th largest with 1.5 million people. Most people in the world lived in rural village communities because most people were farmers. And farmers understand very, very clearly that we depend on nature. The seasons, the climate radically affect whether farmers can survive. They know that winter snow is related to the amount of moisture in the soil in the summer. They know that insects are crucial for pollinating flowering plants. They know that some species of plants take nitrogen from the air and make it into fertilizer in the soil. Farmers understand we are dependent on nature. In only 100 years, from 1900 to 2000, we have changed radically. By the year 2000, there were 4 times as many people, 6 billion people. But now, there were more than 300 cities with more than 1 million people. Tokyo was the largest city in the world in the year 2000, 26 million people. I was just in Tokyo in December. There are now more people in Tokyo than there are in all of Canada. In the rich countries of the world, most people live in big city. And in a big city, people think, well, as long as there are parks and wilderness areas where we can go and play and camp, who needs nature? In a city, our highest priority becomes our jobs, because we need a job to make the money to buy the things that we want. And so in a city, city people put the economy as our highest priority. I just want to remind you, the very word economy comes from the Greek word ekos, meaning home. Economy is the management of home. Economics is the study of home. Ecology is the study of home. Ecologists try to understand what the conditions, the principles, and laws are that allow us to live sustainably on the planet. Now, I would have thought any business group, any corporation, any government would say, wait, before we do that, what are those ecologists telling us? Because we don't want to violate those ecological principles. But now we have a government that says we can't do anything about the atmosphere, about climate change. It'll destroy the economy. So we have elevated the economy above the very things that keep us alive. This is not a way to go towards a sustainable future. I've been in the many, many battles I've been involved in the environmental area. There's always a winner and there's a loser. And I believe that we are now looking at the very fate of humanity in the coming years. We cannot afford to have losers. We've all got to be in this together. So how do we do that then? I think the important thing is that we all have to start from a platform of agreement, and then we build up our individual needs and priorities on the agreed areas of our fundamental issues or concerns. So let me place before you what I think is the platform to begin the conversation. We are biological creatures. We are animals. You know, there are a lot of people that don't like to be called animals, but we are biological creatures. And as animals, what is our absolutely most fundamental need? If we don't get it, we die. Of course, it's air. If we don't have air for 3 minutes, we're dead. If we have air that's polluted, we're sick. I would have thought air would be protecting clean air, would be one of our highest priorities. We need clean water because every one of us is over 60% water by weight. We need food. If we don't have it for less than a few weeks, we're dead. And we need energy, clean energy to sustain us into the future. Those, it seems to me, should be what everyone agrees. Those are our most basic needs. Clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean energy, and nothing we do should in any way destroy that, our most fundamental needs. And you know, the amazing thing is, what allows us to get clean air, clean water, clean soil, clean energy, is life. It's the web of living things around the planet, what we call biodiversity. So the protection of the wilderness, of the diversity of organisms, is fundamental to our very survival. To me, as an animal, I think those are irrefutable primary needs, and all of us have to act in ways that do not in any way impact on those fundamental needs. But of course, we're also social animals. And we now know through extensive studies, children, to be fully human, to fully recognize and have their abilities realized, have to have love, a maximum of love during their upbringing through critical windows. In order to have children that can develop into full functioning human beings, we need to build a society of strong families and supportive communities. We need full employment. We need justice and equity. We need freedom from terror, genocide, or war. These are all things that I believe are our most fundamental needs. And we've got to protect those needs above anything else. Then we ask the question, how do we build an economy that will protect and enhance those things? How do we build a society, a government that will protect those things for future generations? This, I believe, is the challenge of our time. And I think it's very significant that people from the North are now calling people like me to gain some kind of insights and suggestions. And I'm delighted to provide this. I'm sorry I can't provide you with more. Thank you so much. I want the Nunavut tourism to arrange for me to come up north again, one of the great areas on the planet. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your conference.